The forest was quiet. Jake moved slowly between the thick red trees, his boots sinking slightly into the mossy ground. The sky above was gray, just like every other day on this strange planet. He had been stuck here for weeks. His team was gone. The ship had crashed. Now it was just him. He checked the traps he had set the night before. He didn't expect much, maybe a small creature for dinner. Food was hard to find here. The animals were fast. Smarter than Earth animals. But he kept trying. Then he heard. It snap. A sharp, loud sound echoed through the trees. His trap had caught something. Jake ran toward the noise, heart racing. He hoped it wasn't another empty pool or a log falling the wrong way. But as he got closer, he heard something strange. Crying. Not animal cries. Voice cries, soft, scared, female. He slowed down. Carefully, he moved the branches aside and looked into the trap. Jake froze. There, tangled in the net, was a girl. Not human. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, glowing slightly in the dim light. Her long silver hair was full of leaves and dirt. She had sharp but delicate features, long ears that twitched at every sound, and glowing eyes that stared at him with pure terror. She wasn't wearing much, just a torn cloth wrapped around her like a prisoner. Her arms were scratched, her ankle bleeding from the trap's rope. She kicked, cried out in a strange language, and tried to pull herself free. Jake raised his hand slowly. Hey, it's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you. She didn't understand. Her eyes widened more. She screamed something fast, panicked. It almost sounded like she was begging. Then she said a word that made him stop cold. Eat. Jake blinked. What? She kept repeating it, shaking her head. No, eat me. Please. His stomach turned. What the hell? You think I'm going to eat you? The girl kept crying. Jake quickly stepped forward. You're hurt. Let me help. But the girl hissed like a wild animal. She swung her arm and scratched his face with her sharp nails. He backed up, hands up again. Okay, not touching you. She was trembling all over, breathing fast. Her eyes never left his. Jake saw she was completely terrified. Not just of the trap, of him. He sat down a few feet away from her. He didn't want to scare her more. I don't eat people, he said softly. I'm human. I'm just trying to survive. The girl didn't answer. She just curled into herself and whispered something in her language. It sounded like a prayer. Jake looked at her leg. It was turning purple, bruised badly. He pulled out his small med kit. Let me fix your leg. Just that. No tricks. She looked at the kit, then at him. Jake gently reached forward and cut the net open. She tried to crawl back, but her injured leg stopped her. He moved slowly, placed the med gel on her wound, and wrapped it in a clean cloth. There, he said. Better? The girl watched him like a cornered animal, ready to run if she could. He sat down again. Tired. Name's Jake, he said, pointing to himself. Jake. She didn't respond. He pointed to her. You? The girl didn't answer. She looked away. Jake sighed. He stood up and pointed behind him. Camp, food. You can come, or not. He turned to leave, but after a moment, he heard her dragging herself slowly behind him. They reached the small camp. Just a tarp, a fire pit, and a crate full of scavenge tools. Jake gave her a spot near the fire and some water. She didn't touch it. She just sat there, eyes wide, arms around herself, like she was waiting to be attacked. Jake didn't know who she was, where she came from, or what she had been through. But one thing was clear: someone had hurt her before. Maybe humans. Maybe someone worse. He handed her a piece of dried meat. She slapped it out of his hand. Jake didn't say anything. He left it next to her and sat on the other side of the fire. That night he lay on the ground, listening to her breathe. And just before sleep took him, he heard her soft voice whisper again. Please, no, eat. She didn't sleep. Not even once. All night, she sat by the fire, arms wrapped tightly around her legs, watching him like a frightened animal. Her silver hair fell into her face, her glowing eyes wide open, unblinking. Jake pretended to sleep, but he could feel her stare like a knife on his back. Every crackle of the fire, every sigh of the wind made her flinch. He wondered how many nights she had spent alone like this, scared, hunted, hurt. She didn't look like a soldier. She didn't look like she belonged out here. Yet, somehow, she had survived. When the gray light of morning broke through the trees, Jake sat up slowly. Her body tensed immediately. "I'm not your enemy," he said, voice calm, soft. She didn't move. She didn't trust him. That was clear. He grabbed a small fruit from a supply crate and placed it near her without making eye contact. Then, stepping away, he sat down and opened one for himself. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed. Still, she stared at him like he might leap at her. And suddenly, she did move, but not the way he expected. She bolted. Pain shot through her injured leg, but she pushed herself up and tried to run into the trees, limping fast. Jake leapt up. "Wait, no, you'll get hurt worse out there." He chased her only a few steps before she tripped on a root and hit the ground hard. Her hands scraped against the dirt, and she cried out in pain. He stopped a few feet away, breathing hard. Hands raised. "I'm not gonna hurt you." She turned and crawled back until her back hit a tree. She bared her teeth at him, her breath shaking. One hand reached into her cloth wrap and pulled out something small and sharp like a hidden bone. Blade. Jake froze. "Okay," he said, voice low. "You've got a knife. I'm not coming closer." Her eyes flicked between his hands, his face, the camp behind him. She hissed in her language again, then shouted a word he didn't know, but the fear behind it was loud and clear. Then she said it again, slower this time. "Monster." Jake felt something tighten in his chest. Monster? That's what she thought he was. He lowered himself to the ground, sat on the dirt, and shook his head. "You think I'm the monster? I saved you from that trap." She didn't understand the words, but maybe the tone reached her. "You think I'm like them?" He pointed to the scars on her arms, to the burned mark on her shoulder she tried to hide under her hair. "Did they hurt you?" He asked quietly. She looked down. Her blade dropped from her fingers. Her body shook. Jake slowly stood and turned his back to her. "If I wanted to hurt you, I already would have," he said. "But I didn't. I won't." He started walking back to the camp, not looking behind. 1 step, 2 steps. 3. A soft sound stopped him, a whimper. He turned slowly. She was still sitting against the tree, but now her face was in her hands. She was crying, quietly, broken. Jake didn't move. Closer. He just sat down again, nearby but not near enough to scare her. "You're not alone anymore," he said. The wind passed between them like a whisper. The forest watched in silence. Hours later, she limped back to camp. She didn't ask for help. Jake didn't offer, but when she sat down near the fire again, this time she didn't flinch when he handed her food. She still didn't eat it, but she held it in her hands like she was finally thinking about it. Asterisk. The fire had died down. Ash curled in the morning wind as Jake stared at the untouched food still resting near her feet. She hadn't eaten a single bite for hours. She sat like a statue, arms locked around her legs, eyes half closed but always watching. She was tired, hungry, weak, but still too afraid to accept anything from him. Jake sighed and stood. His muscles ached, his mind foggy from worry and lack of sleep. "Suit yourself," he muttered. He picked up his gear and walked into the trees to check the traps again. But this time, his thoughts weren't on food. They were on her. She had said the word monster. She had tried to stab him with a blade. No longer. Then her finger. She had limped back to camp, sat beside his fire, yet hadn't eaten. Why? What had been done to her that she feared kindness? He didn't know her name. didn't know her story. But he was sure of one thing. Someone had broken her. Back at camp she was still there. Still silent. Still staring, but now the food was gone. Jake noticed immediately, but he said nothing. No smile, no reaction. He just sat down, pulled another fruit from the crate, and quietly peeled it. She watched him. This time, her look was different. Still cautious, yes, but curious too. As night came, cold winds swept through the camp. Jake added more wood to the fire. Sparks flew up into the darkness. He noticed her arms were wrapped tightly around herself. She was shaking again. Not just from fear, but from the cold. He stood up, pulled off his thermal jacket, and placed it gently near her without touching her. "You'll freeze," he said simply. She didn't move. He sat back down. Then, slowly, one hand reached out and pulled the jacket closer. She didn't wear it, but she kept it beside her like a shield. Like maybe she thought it would protect her. Jake didn't say a word. But inside, something small and warm flickered. Trust. A tiny spark. Later, after the fire died down and Jake lay on his side to sleep, he heard something soft, barely there. He kept his eyes closed. A whisper. A sound near the food crate. A gentle crunch. She was eating. Finally, he smiled. Just a little, eyes still closed. He didn't want her to know he noticed. Sometimes you have to let the scared ones come to you. He woke to find her lying near the fire, curled up in his jacket. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Peacefully, for the first time. She had slept. And for the first time, Jake saw her not as an alien. Not as a creature, not even as a victim. He saw her as a person. Someone lost. Someone hurt. Someone trying to survive, just like him. Asterisk, the morning light crept through the trees like fingers, searching for secrets. Jake woke to the quiet sound of her breathing, soft and even. She was still curled near the fire, wrapped in his jacket, one hand resting near her face. Her silver hair glowed in the sunlight, covering part of her neck, but not all of it, just above her shoulder. Something dark was visible. Jake leaned in a little. A mark. It looked like a brand burned into her skin, jagged, brutal, a twisted symbol that didn't match any alien language he'd seen. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. His breath caught. Who would do that to someone? Before he could move, her eyes snapped open. She sat up fast and yanked the jacket over her shoulder to hide the mark, her face turning cold, her body tense. Jake raised his hands. "I didn't mean to look. I'm sorry." She said nothing. But her chest rose and fell quickly. Her fists clenched the jacket tightly. He said gently, "I saw something." It looked like it hurt. Her eyes narrowed. Then slowly, she turned her head to the side. And showed it to him. The brand burned deep, old but still raw in places. A symbol of ownership, of pain, of shame. Jake looked at it and felt his stomach twist. "Who did that to you?" he asked softly. She pointed at the mark, then placed a hand on her chest and whispered something that sounded like, "Taken." Long time, then she said another word. One he understood clearly. "Sold." Jake's heart dropped. She hadn't just been lost in the woods. She had been someone's property. A slave. And worse, there were other smaller marks on her arms. Almost hidden. Dots. Lines. Symbols. Tattoos? No. Something else. They looked ceremonial. Like she had once been something more important. Respected. Maybe even royal. Jake looked her in the eyes. "You weren't always a prisoner, were you?" She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. Later she sat across from him, still quiet, but calmer now. Jake prepared food as usual, and this time, when he handed her a fruit, she took it without fear. "You had a name once," Jake said. "Not a number, not a brand, a name." She paused. He pointed to himself. "Jake," then to her. "You?" She looked down and whispered something soft. "Vena, Jake smiled. Vena, that's beautiful. She didn't smile. But she repeated his name slowly. Jake. The sound of it in her voice felt different. Like a small piece of the wall between them had cracked, but before he could speak again, the sound of the wind changed. A sharp hum. Faint, but not natural. Jake's head turned toward the sky. A low vibration. A sound he hadn't heard in weeks. A ship. Vena's eyes widened in fear. She stood up, backing away from the fire. Her body trembled, her voice tight with panic. No. No, they come. Jake stood quickly. Who's coming? She pointed to her brand. Them. Asterisk. That night, the wind didn't whisper, it screamed. The trees groaned. The air felt heavier. Like the planet itself knew something was coming. Jake sat by the fire, sharpening a piece of metal into a makeshift blade. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Across from him, Vena sat hunched, wrapped in the jacket he'd given her. Her knees pulled to her chest. She hadn't said a word since the sound of the ship earlier that day. No eating, no movement. Just silence. But it wasn't a peaceful silence, Dot. It was the silence of someone waiting to be taken. Vena, Jake said. Softly. Talk to me. Who are they? She didn't lift her head. Jake tried again. Why are they after you? Still nothing. Then suddenly, her whisper floated through the cold air. They bought me. From my own people. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. I was gift, she said. Trade for peace. But they lied. Took me, burned my name. Jake leaned forward. And now they're coming back to claim you? She nodded, tears filling her glowing eyes. I escaped, she whispered. Ran, hid, but they never stop. Jake looked up at the dark sky, where a faint blinking red light had begun to glow far above the trees. A tracking beacon. Probably activated when she got close to his camp. He cursed under his breath. I should have seen this coming. Vena suddenly reached out and gripped his arm. Her voice was shaking. Don't give me back, Jake, please. He looked at her. And in that moment he understood. She didn't need food. She didn't need a fire. She needed a promise. I won't, he said firmly. Not now, not ever. Later, while the fire burned low and Jake stayed on guard with a weapon in hand, Vena finally drifted off into uneasy sleep, but it didn't last long. Just as the stars began to fade, she started to tremble. Then came the sound, a whimper, soft, pained. Then words in her language rushed, broken, terrified. Jake turned toward her. She was crying in her sleep, her hands clenched around the jacket, her lips repeating the same word. Over and over. It sounded like stop. Jake moved closer. Vena. It's just a dream. You're safe. But she didn't wake up. Instead, she cried harder, tears slipping down her cheeks, breathing quickening. And then clearly, in broken English, don't touch me. Jake's heart broke in half. He didn't touch her. He just sat beside her, guarding the fire, watching the trees, listening to her sobs. And when she finally calmed down, he whispered, I don't know what they did to you, but I swear no one will ever touch you again. The fire cracked softly. Vena's breathing slowed. Jake didn't sleep at all. Because for the first time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about protection, and he would fight whatever came next. The morning after her nightmare, Vena didn't look at Jake. Not even once. She sat close to the fire, staring into the flames, her eyes hollow. The tears were gone, but something else had taken their place. Shame. Jake kept his distance. He understood. She hadn't meant for him to hear her cry, or those broken words spoken in her sleep. She had survived too long by staying strong, by staying silent. Now her silence was different. He quietly placed a small bowl of warm broth near her side and walked away. No pressure, no words. Just presence. She didn't touch it, not right away, but As the wind picked up and the day grew colder, he heard the soft clink of metal. When he turned back, the bowl was empty. And for the first time, she was looking at him. Not with fear, not with hate, but with something harder to define. Understanding. The day passed slowly. Jake worked on reinforcing their shelter. He tied extra branches across the tarp and sharpened wooden stakes to place around the camp's edge. If those slavers returned, he wanted to be ready. Vena watched him work, and then she helped. Without a word, she picked up a branch and tied it beside his. Jake blinked in surprise. "You're helping?" She didn't answer. But she didn't need to. She stayed beside him all afternoon. As the sky turned orange, Jake lit the fire and sat down. Tired but satisfied, Vena joined him, sitting closer than ever before. He looked at her, smiling gently. "You've come a long way in just a few days." She tilted her head slightly, confused. Jake pointed between them. "Before you ran, screamed, now you sit beside me." Still no answer, he chuckled. That jacket must be working magic. She looked down at the jacket she still wore. Then, slowly looked back up at him. A pause then. A word, soft, careful, "Jake." His heart skipped. She said it again, this time with a small flicker of emotion in her voice. "Jake." He smiled. "That's me," she pointed to herself. "Vena." "I remember," he said. "I won't forget it." And for the first time, she gave him something more powerful than any weapon. A small smile. It barely lasted a second, but it was real. Night came again. Jake lay near the fire, staring up at the sky while Vena sat beside him, knees hugged to her chest. "Do you think your people are still out there?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I have no people." Jake looked at her. "You have me." Her eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing. A minute passed. Then she leaned her head gently against his shoulder. Jake didn't move. He didn't want to break the moment. But then, the device beeped. A high-pitched signal pulsed from the edge of the camp, coming from the old comms unit. Jake had barely kept alive. He sat up fast. So did she. A red light flashed. "Ship, nearby, scanning." Jake's eyes met hers. Vena's face turned pale. "They're close," she whispered. Jake stood and grabbed his blade. "They're not taking you," he said. "Not without going through me first." Asterisk. The red light blinked faster. Jake's fingers tightened around the crude blade he had sharpened himself. It wasn't much, just scrap metal tied to wood, but it was his, and tonight, it had a purpose. Vena stood behind him, frozen, her silver hair blue in the wind. Her eyes, usually glowing, were dull with fear. "They found me," she whispered. "No," Jake said firmly. "They found us." The ship descended like a shadow swallowing the stars. A dark, round vessel, no lights. No welcome, only purpose. A hatch hissed open. Figures stepped out, tall, armored, faceless, collectors, silent servants of whoever had owned Vena. Before. Jake didn't wait for a warning. He stepped forward and shouted, "She's not going anywhere with you." The lead hunter raised a device. A hologram flared to life, showing Vena's face and a line of alien symbols that translated into a single word. "Property." Jake's jaw tightened. "Not anymore." The first hunter lunged forward. Jake ducked low and drove his blade upward. It sparked off armor, slicing wires. The hunter dropped to one knee. Another raised a stun rod and aimed it at Vena. Jake tackled him mid-swing, growling, "She's not yours." Two more moved in. One grabbed Jake by the back of the neck and slammed him into a tree. Pain exploded through his ribs, but he didn't let go of the blade. From the ground, he looked up at Vena. "Run!" But she didn't. Not this time. Vena looked down at her shaking hands. At the jacket Jake had given her. At the man bleeding on the ground because he chose her. She looked at the hunters, and she remembered the cage. The pain. The chains. Her voice rose sharp, clear, commanding. "I am not property. And then she moved faster than they expected. She grabbed the dropped stun rod, swung it hard, and cracked it into the side of one hunter's helmet. Sparks flew. The others turned, surprised. Jake used the moment to stab the second attacker straight in the joint behind the knee. He went down with a metallic groan. Vayna tossed him a second weapon from the ground. Jake caught it. Back to back, they stood together. No longer captor and captive, but equals. It didn't take long. Jake fought with raw survival instincts. Vayna moved with strange grace-trained, precise. She'd been someone before they broke her, and tonight, she took that power back. The last hunter staggered, dazed. Jake raised his blade, but Vayna stopped him. No more chains, she said. Not even for them. Jake nodded. And they let the final one crawl back to the ship. The vessel lifted off silently. Defeated. Later, at the fire, Jake patched up his wounds. Vayna sat beside him, quiet but calm. She watched the stars as if seeing them for the first time. Jake leaned back, exhausted. I guess we're both free now. She nodded. Then, after a pause, whispered, because of you. He looked at her. No. Because of us. She smiled fully, truly, for the first time. Then she reached out and placed her hand over his. Soft, strong. I feared you would eat me, she said with a small laugh. But you gave me back my life. Jake laughed too, tired but happy. Well, I'm a human. We don't eat people. Good, she said. Because I'm staying. He looked into her glowing eyes and saw no fear anymore. Only home.